What's up YouTube? Today we have a really exciting project. We're going to install an Aero 2-in-1 high side exhaust on the 2014 Scrambler. Now, many of you have seen the Scrambler before, and you probably recognize the exhaust I currently have installed on it. It's a Zard Cross 2-in-1 low exhaust. Now, Zard is an outfit out of Italy, and they make fantastic full exhaust systems for several bikes. The 2-in-1 cross exhaust that I have on the Scrambler looks mean and it sounds amazing. There are several YouTube videos out there showcasing the sound of the Zard system. Unfortunately, I don't think they do the pipe justice. Honestly, this is probably one of the best sounding exhausts for the Scrambler. It's low, it's grunty, it's loud. It almost sounds like a Harley, but it's unique in the way that it's really hard to describe. Suffice to say, I love the Zard, but it limits me with regards to being able to put on engine dresser bars or crash bars for the Scrambler. And I do intend to eventually get into some light, maybe heavy ADV with this bike. I'm going to drop it. I have to have engine protection, and frame sliders made by companies like LSL just won't work for the kind of abuse I'm going to put this bike through eventually. Problem with the Zard exhaust is that it runs down the side of the frame exactly where my engine dresser bars would actually install. In addition, I really like the high side pipes that you see on Scramblers. And when I first bought this bike, that was really my vision for where I wanted to take it. Unfortunately, I'm also a stickler for symmetrical pannier frames. There are a ton of companies that make pannier frames for the Scrambler. Metal Mule, Hepco and Becker, Rentec, but all of them account for the original stock exhaust, which offsets the panniers on the brake side. Now, I've purchased a pannier system from a company called Holland, and the pannier system I bought was actually for Bonneville, which means that the panniers are symmetrical on both sides, which also means that I need a shorter high side exhaust on the brake side for the Scrambler. I've looked and there are several options out there, but even the shortest exhaust is actually too long and will end up running into the pannier box on the brake side of the bike. My solution was to mount the Aero 2-in-1 system, but not actually connect the rear cone. So today we're going to try that setup, fire up the bike with the map that I currently have installed from Triumph Twin Power, and see if it works. We'll need a few simple tools for this job, like a tin for parts, a driver and metric sockets, some high-temp black silicone, some copper slip, some marker paint, bike cleaner, some beverages, and an extra hand doesn't hurt. Our first job is to remove the existing exhaust. That's connected via these header pipes here, followed by a bolt mounted underneath the rear set just there. Our main bolt is a number 5 bolt attached with a number 13 nut. It's pretty tight quarters back in here, so I'm going to try to loosen this with my Allen wrench. And I just used another wrench to help break it. So it's coming loose here pretty easily. So they make a tool to remove these springs, and it's basically the reverse of a pair of pliers. And I don't have one of those, so I'm just going to use a pair of needle nose try to grab this and pull it off manually. Alright, easy enough. Alright, these springs are on a little tighter, and I don't have a tremendous amount of room here, so I'm just going to use a screwdriver and wedge it underneath the spring and then leverage it up and over very carefully. Rinse and repeat for the other spring. Although I might be able to reach this one from the bottom easier. Alright. Both springs. Alright, with our springs off of our manifold and all of our bolts and springs undone, I might be able to pull the entire assembly down. With the Canon link pipe off, the next piece or the next step will be to take off the actual headers. These are secured with a number 13 bolts, and once again we don't have a lot of space to work with, so this is going to be a bit of a slow process. So I can't quite get to this bolt with the wrench, so we're going to use a driver and some deep well sockets. These are not in particularly tight. It does not take much to loosen them up. So just like that, this is now ready to come out. So we've moved over to the other side of the bike to get the other header off, and again we're just going to use our number 13 deep well socket to get these off. So I've switched to an offset wrench, and that is providing me with just what I need to be able to get this bolt off. So when you take your exhaust headers off, you'll notice that there is a crush washer made of copper that's fixed to the block. You'll need to pull these out. Alright, the last piece of the Zard installation is this little offset bracket down here that the can actually connected to. So I'm going to pull this off of the frame. So this is connected in or bolted into the holes for that are pre-drilled for the center stand. And that was connected with a number 17 nut and I believe a number 6 metric Allen wrench. Alright, I've got everything unpacked. What we've got here is the heat shield for the final can, and I'm not going to be using this, so I'm just going to set this to the side. It's a very similar setup to the Zard. We've got 2 header pipes. Those run into a manifold that takes the 2 pipes into one larger pipe, and then this pipe would actually connect to the final can, or I guess the slip-on portion of the exhaust system that I won't be using. You've noticed I've switched to using gloves because if you touch any of the exhaust, your hands will transfer oil and grease to the metal, and if you don't clean that before the exhaust gets hot, that will actually permanently discolor the exhaust and leave your smudgy fingerprints behind, which is something we don't want to do. This link pipe and manifold mounts to the brake side of the bike. It stops if you're familiar with the Bonneville Scrambler Thruxton line, just where the right-hand side cover stops. It is supported with 2 holes for bolts that are already in the frame via this spacer right here. This heat shield is not in the way of mounting this link pipe. So I'm going to go ahead and mount this heat shield to this link pipe. It's one less thing to do when it's actually physically mounted to the bike. It'll be a little bit easier to manage. This is mounted via these snap-on threaded plate deals. I don't really even know what these are called. And they just slide into these brackets here, and they provide a thread for these stainless steel screws to hold the heat plate onto this piece here. These are number 5 metric Allen bolts, so I'm going to tighten this down. So this piece is ready to be installed. Alright, we're on the brake side of the bike and we're going to get this header pipe installed first. Of course, your crush washer goes in to the block. And you can't see it on the camera, but there are little tabs of copper on that crush washer, and they actually bend in place when you push the washer into the block. Alright, a word on these pressure plates here, or the plates that actually attach the headers, the header pipes to the block. They're distinct in their orientation. You've got one hole that's machined perfectly here, and another that's machined to be adjustable. It is crucial that the hole that's machined to be adjustable is on the bottom. If you attempt to fasten the header pipe with that plate twisted, your header pipe will end up sitting too low and you won't be able to get it to compress down into the block. I'm going to put some copper slip on the inside. Now, copper slip will prevent these from seizing up, which is incredibly important should we ever want to take the exhaust off. Alright, just like our brake side, we want to get our crush washer in here first. And again, I don't know if you can see the tabs on the washer themselves, but these actually retain the washer in place when you put it in the block. Now, I'm putting these in with the tabs facing inward. I don't know if that's right, but what the hell, it works. Once again, I'm going to get this into position. Leave these loose for now so that the headers can be adjusted to the correct position. And it appears that the clutch side header actually is supposed to be on top and the brake side header is supposed to be on bottom. So the O2 sensor blanks are number 18 nuts, and it's a good thing I checked because these are really, although they seem tight, the moment you get a socket on them, they twist right off. So these are really just not in there very well. So I'm going to back these out, apply some copper slip, and then put them back in with more torque. Alright, now we're ready to put our link pipe onto the headers. What we're going to do here where these pipes join is we're actually going to make a seal with ultra black high temp silicone. To do that, we're just going to apply a generous amount to the inside of this manifold pipe and run that around on the inside of the pipe. This will do 2 things for us. 1, it'll make an airtight seal with the manifold pipe and the headers, and 2, it'll make sliding this manifold pipe over the headers much easier, as the silicone, while it's wet, will act as sort of a lubricant rather than having metal on metal. So you can see we've got just a generous amount in there. Alright, we're ready to actually put the manifold link pipe onto the headers, and there's no two ways about it. This is going to take a bit of finagling. Now, the alignment of this link pipe is actually based on a pre-threaded hole for a bolt that goes right here. And if you can see that on the camera, there's a fastener or a bit of metal welded on this that's supposed to line up to this hole in the frame right here. So that's what we're basing the alignment of the headers and this link pipe on. We're going to fidget with this until we get it into place. The important thing with a job like this, or any job in general, is to just take your time, make sure you're doing it right. You don't want to mess up and cause damage to the bike because you're too eager to get it installed. Before we fire everything up, I'm going to use a bit of my wife's unwanted nail polish as marker paint, and I'm going to dot these header bolts both on the bolt and then on the plate that they're pressing down. When that paint dries, it'll be an indicator as to where the bolts were originally tightened. That way I can always go back and make sure that nothing's come loose. If you've ever wondered what the blue dots are all over critical areas of your bike, it's because mechanics do the same thing. Now we're ready to start up the bike, and one of the things that's crucial is to make sure there aren't any air leaks in the header pipes. Before the bike gets hot, I'm going to just lick my finger and hold it down here and just feel for any air coming out of the block. Alright YouTube, got the aero installed. The Scrambler's looking pretty tight. I've got some fueling issues. I think it's running a little rich. I'm going to reach out to Triumph Twin Power and show them my setup. Hopefully they've got a map that will work for me. So I guess until next time.